Hey there, Taurus. This is an ascendant forecast taking you from Monday, the 22nd of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 28th of December, 2025. And, this week is going to be very different to the one we've just come from, where we had Mars going into Capricorn, the Sun going into Capricorn, giving us the start of a new season. It's winter for the people in the Northern Hemisphere, summer if you're down south. We also had that very potent new moon in the sign of Sagittarius in a conjunction with the galactic center as well. I mean, what a big week. And, right at the end of the week, we also had 3 exact squares as well. So very, very high energy. As we come into this next week, on Monday, the 22nd of December, things are calming down. We're really coming into the calm, practical side of Capricorn. We're coming into a period of grounding. We're also coming into more of a sober and grown-up feel. We've also got Venus coming into Capricorn in this week ahead. There are 2 exact planetary aspects I'm going to be paying attention to in this week ahead, and not much else. So it's going to be a lot quieter, a lot less to work through, and I think we're going to be able to rest up a little bit before the new year begins. So if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. I hope you like it. And I'm just going to bring up the charts now, and as usual, just put out a quick shout out to the people that support me and my channel in the way that you do. Thank you so much. So I've got 2 charts to represent this week ahead. This one represents where we are at the start of the week at midnight on Monday, the 22nd of December. These are all set to London time because London is the midpoint between all of the time zones. It's like universal time. And you'll see that the moon is in the sign of Capricorn. And then by the end of the week, the moon is in a tight conjunction with Chiron on the early morning of Monday, the 29th at midnight. So literally I'm taking you right the way to the end of Sunday, the 28th. And you can see here that the moon is going from Capricorn to Aries. You'll also see that Venus is coming over into Capricorn as well. So let's have a bit of a deeper look. Now, when you're looking at your birth chart, I mean, I talk about houses, and each of these segments of this chart are a house. We start counting from 9 o'clock as we're looking at this as a clock face. So this is the first house. And you'd expect that because I'm talking to you as a Taurus rising person or somebody with Taurus ascendant. Now, when you look at your birth chart on whatever app or platform that you're using, when you look at it, you see that you've got the symbol for Taurus and also the symbol for Gemini in your first house, that also means it's worth listening to the Gemini forecast because they will also be relevant. So anyway, as we're coming in, the moon is going into Aquarius on Monday, the 22nd. The moon is also going to come into a conjunction with Pluto and by default come into a trine with Uranus. The moon's actually coming into a trine with Uranus ever so slightly before. But this is very, very potent, a really strong start to the week because, the moon is coming into the 10th house. The 10th house is one of the angular houses. This is associated with your career, how you stand in the world, how you feel. Like, do you feel like you are able to look after yourself? Do you feel capable? Do you feel appreciated for all of the efforts that you do? And so it really talks about you as an authority figure in your own life and, how responsible you are. Now, responsibility is a real theme this week because, look, I mean, we've got the Sun and Mars in the sign of Capricorn. And by Wednesday, the 24th, Venus also joins in as well. So there's definitely a Capricorn theme. And all of those Capricorn planets are sorry, I'm just helping myself to a glass of water while I'm doing this. All of these Capricorn planets are in the 9th house. Now, the 9th house, even though Capricorn is quite a sturdy, sober, stable, responsible sign, the 9th house is really associated with your great adventure and with going deeper into knowledge and sharing. It's really bringing up this desire to know things at a much deeper level, not just knowing A plus B equals C, but knowing the whys and wherefores around it. So, here with all these planets, you're really wanting to understand things at a universal, mystical level, or a philosophical, spiritual, or religious level. You might want to go deeper into politics. There's so much. There's so much here. And this is also an area where we naturally teach, we naturally broadcast, we naturally write. It's highly creative. And what I really think about this is it also rules everything that's foreign. So anywhere where you're learning something different from the mind view that you were raised in, or where you want to venture or go or travel somewhere where you feel like a stranger, where you go somewhere where it's completely new. So this is a very sort of foreign part of your chart and an interesting part of your chart. And so yeah, I think not only are we starting, or are you starting this week from the perspective of deep change and almost like an arresting look at your life, because Pluto up here conjunct the moon is definitely bringing this sudden need to know yourself, but also to have power and to look at your power in the 10th house. So you've got all this going on, but backing it up is this desire to know things much more deeply. So I think from your deep look at life, you're now thinking, okay, how can I use that in a powerful and influential way? And as this comes into a trine with Uranus in the first house as well, you're wondering how you can allow everything that's weird or different about you to be seen at a more public level. So I really do think you're kind of allowing yourself to transform in a way that you've not allowed that previously. So it's pretty strong. It's a strong entrance into the week. Now, the next big movement for me is coming, as I'm looking at this, is on Wednesday, the 24th. On that day, we've got Venus going into the sign of Capricorn. But before she gets there, she's going to go into an exact square with Neptune. Now, this is interesting because both Venus and Neptune are harmonics of love. Venus is the terrestrial love. Neptune is the cosmic love, a higher, you could say, ethereal love. Some people talk about, like the real human love versus the ethereal unconditional love. Now, whether unconditional love can be realized or not in this lifetime, who knows? But the two of these love vibrations in a square is showing a certain amount of dissatisfaction with sensing the beautiful love, but being in the reality of the real messy bodily love, and vice versa. Like, how can you have a love that includes both of those? How can you integrate all aspects of love? Now, Venus has already just been in the sign of Sagittarius for quite a while, and it's the 8th house, which brings up a lot of stuff to do with well, I think it brings up a lot of stuff to do with anything that you feel ashamed about or guilted about, or maybe just not good enough, embarrassed, anywhere where you feel like people have had expectations over you that you've not been able to meet. And of course, what's the loving thing to do with people when they're different? I think Venus and Neptune coming into this square together is going to be dissolving expectations that people have had over you, and maybe that you've held over other people. There's definitely a sense of longing for a real connection, not just the physical one, and definitely not like a sort of terrestrial version of love, where it's done in words, but is it matched with the heart? There's a real longing for something much deeper. You might even find there's a nostalgia for a time when everything was good, or when everything felt more intense. Some people might even feel that nostalgia for before they were even born. That nostalgia that some people feel, and I have felt that myself, where you feel like you've been cut off from source, like the fall from grace, that feeling that you've been cut off from the source of all good. In many respects, we are all birthed. I currently believe this is the truth, but we all are currently linked to our mums, aren't we? With an umbilical cord. I've birthed 3 children myself. That connection to our parents that gets severed, and we're breastfed mostly. We are connected to our parents until we grow, especially our mum, obviously, until we grow capable enough to be more self-sustaining. And so I do think this like cutting off and that feeling of being cut off from the source is a real I think it's a real phenomenon, that people can remember. So there's that kind of longing for something you can't necessarily capture in this real physical form, and how we manage that. So there is a bit of a rose-colored, rose-tinted glasses time, and possibly a fog around it. It's quite dreamy and idealistic. Other things to consider, because Neptune, I think, makes situations less clear when he's in a square with things. And so you might also wonder if you've overgiven at some point, been over generous. Maybe you've left yourself wide open to be a victim. You've maybe opened the door in holding illusions. You've opened the door to being walked over, a bit like a doormat. So this energy is coming up, and if it's coming up for you around Wednesday, I think it's coming up because you're ready to do something about it. I mean, straight after Venus moves into Capricorn, and when she goes into Capricorn, she's sober, she's grown up, she takes full responsibility for her emotions, she understands the necessity of boundaries, and she might hold them in a very responsible way. But this isn't like romantic, giggly love. You know, Venus in Capricorn is very grown up and seeking the company of older people, people who are older, wiser, maybe also people that yield a bit more power. But I think you're coming back into your power. You know, maybe you are embracing the romantic fantasy, but then moving on and realizing that too must, you know, like it's good to be there for a moment, but then we must like move into the responsibility of love. You know, we're always evolving. So Wednesday's pretty big. I mean, in truth, you know, this square has been building up, and then it will kind of ease off after, but this is the exact point of it on Wednesday, the 24th. Now, as we come on to Thursday, the 25th, by this point, the moon has gone into the sign of Pisces, and it's really highlighting everything to do with your social life, your networks, how powerful they are. Do you feel like you're part of a collaboration? Are you able to collaborate with the people around you in a compelling way? Do you feel like part of a tribe? How do you feel about that? Do you feel connected? Seeing as connection's a bit of a theme. And then as we're coming into Saturday, the 27th, the moon is moving into, actually just before then, let's just touch, you know, the moon is going to come into a conjunction with both Saturn and Neptune. And, you know, the moon is going to make squares. In fact, if I just move this chart on, you'll see it even better. You know, the moon will, when the moon is here, the moon's going to make squares to Mercury, at the same time as these conjunctions to Saturn and Neptune. And so again, you know, any tensions around responsibility and the duality of nature, especially where you feel like, and this might be something that I mentioned in the previous week when I was talking about, you know, are you carrying responsibility, you know, in your social friendships that feels uncomfortable? Is there something going on between the people you love and the people who you respect that just doesn't feel quite in alignment? That moon is going to remind you of that. But anyway, on Saturday, the 27th, the moon is going to come into the sign of Aries. Now, this is in the 12th house. So for Saturday and Sunday, we've got the moon in the 12th house. When the moon's in the 12th house, we tend to be a little bit more low key. You know, we're not quite so vigilant, we're not so out there. We want to rest up a little bit, and we might put up some big boundaries, especially seeing as your 12th house is in the sign of Aries. You know, you'll say, okay, this is my time now, I absolutely need to come into myself. So it's quiet, it's gentle. Now, as we're coming into Sunday, the 28th, one of the most striking things about that day, and this is really the final thing that I'm talking about, we're coming into this lovely a trine between Mercury and Chiron, and the moon is also involved in it. Now, this is special because, you know, Mercury is showing us the conversations we might be having, and connected to Chiron, they're healing ones, you know, and Chiron's in the 12th house. So you're having conversations with people that could heal your unconscious mind, could heal all the self-sabotage that goes on, any secret and hidden programs that have been persisting your whole life are getting to be seen and understood and spoken about. So I do think that there are some old wounds that might come up during this time. I think there are some gentle breakthroughs to be had. I also think there's wisdom, there's a sense of relief, and there's some real insight coming forwards. You know, I just think this is a great time. And, you know, like the moon, when it comes into a conjunction with Chiron, we can often feel a bit triggered. We can feel oversensitive for sure. However, with this lovely trine to Mercury, I think we're going to find the right words to come out at the right time so that we can have these breakthroughs. So from start to finish, I just think we're heading into understanding love from a completely different perspective, and then coming into a feeling of healing as we end this week. And this is in many ways just creating a clearing for us before we go into 2026. So I hope that's helpful for you, Taurus, really do. If you like the way I do my forecasts, you might be interested to hear that my membership is now, my community space is now free. Free to join if you want to look at my relationship and connections forecasts each week, or my ambition, career and money forecasts. They're also free now. And I do a Monday to Friday forecast where I'm looking at the moon positions as well. But it's a great place to come to if you want to make some connections with people, talk a little bit about astrology, and reach out to me. So if that's of interest, just get in touch. All of my details are below. But have a beautiful week ahead, and catch up with you all soon. Bye for now.